Hello everyone, and welcome to Happily Ever Audio, where every story begins with a little magic, a sprinkle of wonder, and ends, well, you know how it ends. I'm so glad you're here. Find a comfy spot, snuggle up, and let your imagination take flight. Today's tale is about two mice from very different worlds. One lives a quiet, simple life in the peaceful countryside. The other lives in a big, busy city full of sparkle and surprises. When these two cousins visit each other, they learn that where you live and how you live can be very different, and that home is really where your heart feels the happiest. So snuggle in tight, open those listening ears as we listen to the story of the Country Mouse and the City Mouse. Once upon a time, in the heart of the country, beneath the shade of a large oak tree, there lived a modest little mouse. His home was small but tidy, a cozy burrow filled with dry grasses, warm leaves, and a few shiny treasures he'd found over the years. He was the Country Mouse, and he led a peaceful life. Each day he scurried through the fields and meadows, gathering seeds, nuts, and berries. He enjoyed the simple pleasures, the sound of the wind in the trees, the warmth of the sun on his fur, and the comfort of his quiet home. One morning, as the Country Mouse nibbled on a sunflower seed, he heard a rustling at the entrance of his burrow. He poked his head out and saw a well-dressed, sleek-looking mouse standing on the path, wearing a tiny satchel and a polished air. "Cousin!" cried the Country Mouse, bounding forward with joy. "You've finally come!" Indeed, it was his cousin from the city, a sophisticated mouse with shiny fur, a confident stride, and tales to tell. He had traveled far, riding partway in a basket of fruit from a merchant's cart, just to visit. The Country Mouse welcomed him warmly, leading him inside and offering the best food he had, a bowl of cracked corn, some dried peas, and an old piece of cheese he'd saved for a special occasion. But the City Mouse wrinkled his nose. "Is this what you eat?" he said, poking at the food with a paw. "Where's the roast hazelnut tart? The brie? The pastries?" The Country Mouse laughed. "Oh, we don't need such things, but this is what I have, and it fills my belly." The Country Mouse was polite, but he hardly ate. Instead, he began to describe his own life back in the grand house of his humans. How he dined every night on crumbs from the lavish meals, snuck sips of cream, and listened to the opera playing from the radio. The Country Mouse listened with wide eyes. "Why don't you come back with me to the city?" the City Mouse offered. "You can stay in my home, eat what I eat, and see what you've been missing." The Country Mouse hesitated. He had never left the countryside before, but curiosity tugged at him. And so, the next morning, after a night of thinking, he packed a small satchel and joined his cousin on the journey. The two mice traveled for a long time, and at last they reached the grand house where the City Mouse lived. It was indeed magnificent. Everything looked so big and new. The floors sparkled like glass, and the air smelled of roasted nuts and warm bread. "Come," said the City Mouse, leading him to the dining room table. The table was a wonderland. Cakes, cheeses, meats, fruits, pies, all left out after a grand human feast. The Country Mouse could hardly believe his eyes. He bit into a piece of creamy cheese and sighed in delight. He had never tasted anything like this. But just as he reached for another piece of cheese, there was a loud thump, then a creak, and suddenly, boom! The dining room door flew open. A huge human appeared, followed by a terrifying creature. A big, black cat, eyes gleaming in the dark. The mice froze, then ran. "Quick!" shouted the City Mouse, diving off the table and racing under a cabinet. The Country Mouse followed, his heart pounding in his chest. They slipped into a crack in the wall, panting as the cat prowled outside, sniffing and swiping at the hole with his paw. They didn't speak for a long time, only the sound of their breath and the occasional scratch of the cat's paws filled the space. At last, when the cat lost interest and padded away, the city mouse looked at his cousin and smiled. "Exciting, isn't it?" But the country mouse did not smile. He was trembling. "Cousin," he said quietly, "I thank you for your hospitality, but this kind of life is just not for me." The city mouse looked confused. "Why not? We have everything here." "You may have a nice big space and really fine food, but you also have danger around every corner. I would rather eat dry crust in peace than feast in fear." And with that, the country mouse gathered his things, hugged his cousin goodbye, and made the long journey back home, back to his quiet fields, his simple meals, and his peaceful sleep. The end. And that's the end of our tale. Sometimes a place can be loud and exciting, and sometimes it can be quiet and calm. But the best place of all is the one that makes you feel safe, happy, and just like you. Thank you for listening to Happily Ever Audio, where stories come to life and dreams begin. Until next time, keep imagining, keep smiling, and may all your days end happily ever after.